Okay, picture this. A city that's less a place and more a promise, or maybe a warning. Neon lights slice through this perpetual smog. Chrome gleams on these massive skyscrapers. And the streets below, they just pulse with augmented bodies and whispers of opportunity or, danger.
Sounds like Night City.
Exactly. Night City, the heart of Cyberpunk 2077.
Right.
A game defined by its sheer scale, its incredible ambition, and, well, let's be honest, a famously turbulent start.
Yeah, that's definitely putting it mildly.
Yeah.
Back in 2020, its debut was challenging, especially in the consoles it first landed on. Some very public hurdles there.
Absolutely, a really bumpy road right out of the gate. But wow, what a turnaround it's had since then. We've watched this game go through this remarkable transformation.
It really has.
Driven by just persistent work, major updates, the kind that totally rework core systems like Patch 2.0 did, and then capped off with that incredible Phantom Liberty expansion. It really found its feet. It went from that difficult launch story to actually winning awards, like Best Ongoing Game at the Game Awards 2023. That says something.
And the story's clearly not over.
Yeah.
Because the sort of culmination of that whole journey, the definitive Ultimate Edition, is landing on a platform that definitely raises a few eyebrows, the Nintendo Switch 2.
Right.
And not just landing eventually, but as a launch title, June 5, 2025. That feels like, well, it's a statement, isn't it?
It really is, because this isn't just the base game stripped down, the Ultimate Edition package, it's everything. The base game, all those little free DLCs they added over time, and that huge, critically acclaimed Phantom Liberty expansion.
I'm rolling around.
All together, and bringing one of gaming's most ambitious, most mature, graphically intense, open-world experiences to Nintendo's next-gen hardware, especially right at launch. That feels really significant, like a real showcase for what that Switch 2 can actually do.
And for you listening right now, that's exactly what we're going to unpack in this deep dive. We want to trace the entire journey of Cyberpunk 2077. We'll immerse ourselves in the world, Night City itself, explore its complex story, the memorable characters, especially that whole dynamic with Johnny Silverhand.
Yeah.
We'll need to understand how the game pulled off that redemption arc. Look really closely at the Phantom Liberty expansion, and importantly, dig into the technical achievement of getting this beast of a game onto the Switch 2.
So you walk away with a full picture, understanding why this specific release on this console right now is such a genuinely big deal in the gaming world. We've got the sources. Let's dive in.
All right, well, where else can we start but the city itself, Night City.
Right. It's so much more than just a backdrop. It feels like a character in its own right. A pretty toxic one, maybe, but still a character. It's this sprawling dystopian megalopolis, just drenched in neon and these giant projected ads everywhere. You look up, you see corporate power literally scraping the sky with these immense towers. Then you look down and you're in the gritty, often totally lawless streets and slums. It's that contrast.
Yeah. And that feeling is so baked in because it's built on really rich foundations. Mike Pondsmith's original Cyberpunk tabletop RPG.
Right.
That source material gives it this authentic feel, this mix of corporate spying, body modification, the sort of blurred lines of transhumanism, and this constant sense of just gritty survival. It's where immense power and fleeting glamour just crash right into poverty and desperation.
And the corporations aren't just background noise. They feel like major powers. Arasaka and Militech, they feel like these warring nations within the city itself. Their conflict shapes so much of the world and the plot.
Absolutely. And the way the city districts vary reinforces that. You go from this super opulent, almost sterile city center to places like Pacifica, which feels practically abandoned and run by gangs. The game does an amazing job of making you feel like you're actually there.
It really does. Being in first person is a huge part of it, obviously, but it's also the little details. The environmental storytelling is just phenomenal. You find these data charts lying around, like little digital voicemails or journal entries, giving you these tiny glimpses into people's lives or maybe some corporate secret. The graffiti tells stories. Even the radio stations you flip through while driving capture different parts of the city's culture, its news. It really builds the atmosphere.
And smack bang in the middle of this incredibly intense place, there's V.
Your character, who you get to customize quite a bit. You're basically a mercenary, an edge runner, trying to make a name for yourself, just trying to survive, really. And then you get swept up in this quest for something legendary, basically, immortality.
And that journey is fundamentally shaped by your choices as the player. Even right from the very beginning. The life path you pick, Nomad, Street Kid, or Corpo, it's not just flavor text.
Right, it actually matters.
It changes your starting point in the world, it affects dialogue options you get throughout the entire game, and it even tweaks some of your early missions.
Yeah.
It really grounds V in a specific slice of Night City's whole ecosystem.
Okay, so your V, you've got your background sorted, and then you get pulled into the main story, which really kicks off with this absolutely massive high-stakes heist.
Yeah, that whole prologue section sets everything up. You build these crucial relationships, like with the fixer, Dexter Deshawn, and maybe most importantly, your friend and partner, Jackie Wells.
Go, Jackie.
Yeah. And then the whole plot just explodes when you try to steal this incredibly valuable biochip from the biggest corporation around, Arasaka.
And that's the moment that brings in the character who becomes just central to everything, Johnny Silverhand.
Yes, Johnny, famously played by Keanu Reeves, of course. He's this legendary, kind of rebellious rocker boy figure from the past whose digital consciousness, his construct, gets fused with V's own mind because of that stolen biochip.
Their dynamic is just electric. It starts off as this really uneasy, almost hostile partnership. Yeah. They clash constantly, loads of witty banter, but also these fundamentally different views on the world, on survival. But your choices, your interactions throughout the game, they genuinely shape how that relationship develops. It can become something else entirely. And how you handle Johnny directly impacts the possible endings of the game. Keanu Reeves' performance was so key, too, widely praised, even got that BAFTA nomination.
And the game's overall story structure feels big, like a sprawling novel. It's kind of broken into 3 main acts, and you spend a lot of your time taking on various gigs, these side missions, building your reputation, earning money, getting gear, all while you're desperately trying to figure out what this biochip is doing to V and how to, well, survive it.
And it's not just a straight line. The narrative genuinely branches based on the big decisions you make, leading to multiple distinct endings. But beyond that main quest, the side quests are often where the world truly comes alive.
Oh, completely.
They aren't just filler tasks. They add incredible depth to the lore, and honestly, they often contain the most emotionally powerful stories. You think about that quest with the monk, or the really deep, complex relationships you can form with characters like Judy Alvarez, Panna Palmer, River Ward, or Carrie Eurodyne.
Yeah, those character arcs are fantastic.
And some of the standalone ones, like Sinnerman or The Hunt, they just stick with you long after you finish them. They're intense.
That deep world and that compelling story, that's part of what makes the game's journey to redemption so fascinating. We should probably talk openly about that 2020 launch.
Yeah, we have to. It's a core part of the narrative around the game. It was undeniably rushed, significant bugs, major performance problems, particularly on the base PS4 and Xbox One. It led to a very public backlash.
Sony even took the drastic step of temporarily removing the game from the PlayStation Store. That was almost unheard of for such a huge release.
And the difficulties weren't only technical. There were documented issues during development, reports about extensive crunch, even class action lawsuits tied to the game's launch date, which were eventually settled. It was a really tough period for the developers and for the players who were excited about it.
But what happened next was pretty remarkable, you have to admit. CD Projekt RED publicly committed to fixing it, and they followed through.
They did. They released numerous patches, improving things bit by bit, culminating in what most people see as the real turning point, Update 2.0.
Right.
This wasn't just tweaking things. This was a fundamental overhaul. They completely redid the skill trees, improved the enemy AI, even added new mechanics like vehicle combat. It felt like a different game in some ways.
And the Phantom Liberty expansion was absolutely pivotal in cementing that redemption.
Yeah.
It wasn't just more content. It felt like the game finally fully delivering on its potential, both in terms of polish and just gripping storytelling.
That's why seeing it win Best Ongoing Game at the Game Awards in 2023, it felt like such clear proof of that turnaround. It was validation.
The sales figures reflect that too. By November 2024, the base game had sold over 30 million copies globally. And Phantom Liberty on its own had cleared over 10 million sales. That shows a huge audience came back or discovered it fresh and really enjoyed the improved experience.
And since the Switch 2 Ultimate Edition includes it, let's spend a bit more time on Phantom Liberty because it adds this whole other fantastic layer to the game.
Yeah, it's basically a full-blown spy thriller woven into the existing world. The setting is Dogtown, this completely new area, a walled-off, pretty lawless district inside Night City, ruled by this intimidating warlord figure, Kurt Hansen.
And the setup just hooks you right away. The shuttle carrying the president of the United States, the NUSA president, crashes right into the middle of Dogtown, and you, as V, get pulled into this mission to rescue her.
This introduces a whole new cast, but the key players are this really cool, calculating FIA agent named Solomon Reed, played by Idris Elba.
Great casting there.
Oh, yeah. And this incredibly complex, compelling necrunner named Songbird. You get tangled in this web of high-stakes espionage, questions of loyalty, and some genuinely tough moral choices. Do you trust Reed and his sort of patriotic duty, or do you side with Songbird and her more desperate personal motives?
Your decisions in Phantom Liberty feel incredibly weighty, leading to two totally distinct endings just for that storyline. Critics absolutely raved about it. Many called it Cyberpunk's crown jewel for its writing and mission design. It's sitting at a 921 on Metacritic for the PS5 version, which tells you a lot about its quality.
Stepping back slightly, let's touch on the core gameplay itself, because that also evolved significantly, especially with that update 2.0. It's this really deep mix of RPG systems and quite visceral action.
Right, the player customization goes deep. You're putting points into core stats like body, reflexes, intelligence, cool technical ability, and unlocking literally hundreds of perks that let you really tailor V's abilities. Do you want to be a ghost, hacking everything unseen? A cybernetically enhanced street brawler? A smooth-talking manipulator?
And the cyberware, the body modifications, are key to defining your build. These aren't just stat boosts. They give you active abilities that fundamentally change how you play. Optic scanners give you intel. Monowire arms are these lethal whips. Gorilla arms add brute strength. And activating something like a Sandevistan slows down time around you, letting you pull off Matrix-style moves.
Hacking, the quick hacks, feel almost like a magic system. You can overheat enemies, make their cybernetics malfunction, even take control of turrets or cameras remotely. Update 2.0 really streamlined how all this progression worked, made the different builds feel much more distinct and viable. And Phantom Liberty, raising the level cap to 60, gave you even more points to play with.
Combat itself is flexible. You can go loud with a huge array of guns, get up close and personal with blades or blunt weapons, or even engage in shootouts from your vehicle, which, as we said, got a big upgrade.
And what's really cool is how integrated the story feels with the gameplay. Your dialogue choices aren't just throwaway lines. Often they're timed, putting pressure on you. You get options to negotiate, intimidate, charm, or even use your specific life path background to sway conversations and outcomes.
Yeah, and your build influences things too. Being a skilled netrunner opens up unique dialogue options or ways to bypass obstacles that a pure muscle build wouldn't have.
Yeah.
And the environmental storytelling we mentioned. It often gives you clues or context that directly helps with missions or understanding the situation.
Okay, so all of this depth, this complexity, this massive world brings us to the main event, getting this game onto the Nintendo Switch 2. This port is genuinely a significant technical feat.
It absolutely is, taking a graphically intense, huge open-world RPG like Cyberpunk 2077 and making it run well on a portable console. That takes some serious engineering skill. We know from the sources that the specific development for the Switch 2 version kicked off back in summer 2023. And crucially, it started after Nintendo had pitched CD Projekt RED on what their new hardware could actually do. CDPR then handled the porting work internally.
And they clearly leaned into the Switch 2's strengths. That DLSS-powered GPU is absolutely vital for hitting the performance targets at decent resolutions. The increased RAM, the sources mentioned 12 GB in the context of this port's development, is critical for managing that complex world, the AI, all the streaming data.
Yeah, you need that memory bandwidth.
And the fact they managed to squeeze the entire game, including Phantom Liberty, onto a single 64 GB game card, that's pretty remarkable in itself. Avoids massive mandatory downloads.
They aim for specific performance goals, targeting 1080p resolution at 30 frames per second in a quality mode when docked.
Okay.
Or offering a smoother 40 frames per second in a performance mode docked. Handheld, the target was 720p resolution, but still aiming for that 40p's in performance mode.
Which is pretty ambitious for handheld. So to hit those numbers, they obviously had to make some smart compromises. Things like slightly lower draw distances, maybe some simplified lighting effects compared to the absolute highest-end PC or console versions. But the key thing is,
the end result delivers the full Cyberpunk 2077 experience. Base game, expansion, everything.
Yeah.
Without needing huge downloads if you buy the physical cartridge.
Yeah.
That's a big win for players.
And it seems to have paid off. It's been widely praised as a remarkable launch day port. It even scored a really strong 9100 on Metacritic for the Switch 2 version. Critics have noted that the handheld image quality holds up surprisingly well, often drawing favorable comparisons to, say, the Xbox Series S version.
Beyond just getting it running, though, they also added features specifically using the Switch 2 hardware to make the experience better on that platform.
Yeah, like what?
Well, first off, just having Night City in your hands, fully portable, that's inherently cool. You can literally take this massive, dense world with you anywhere, and they tailored the controls. Gyroscope aiming is included, which can be surprisingly good for fine-tuning headshots in firefights or lining up sniper shots.
Oh, nice. I like gyro aiming when it's done well.
And the new Joy-Con 2 motion controls. They're apparently used for things like more visceral melee combat, swinging a katana with a flick of the wrist, maybe.
Yeah.
And also for more immersive driving, especially during those intense chase sequences with Panem.
Huh. Interesting. And the touchscreen.
Yep. Integrated too.
Yeah.
Which sounds really handy for navigating menus quickly, like the hacking interface, zooming in on data shards you find, managing your inventory grid, or just tapping radio stations while driving. And apparently the Joy-Con 2 has some kind of mouse-like input capability too, which could offer another way for precise aiming or menu navigation.
Okay, lots of options there. And that seamless experience you mentioned is key. Having it all on the 64 GB cart is fantastic for a game this big. Plus, they included cross-progression support.
Right, so if you've already poured hours into V on PC or another console, you could potentially pick up right where you left off on your Switch 2. That's a nice bonus.
And hitting that 40-piece performance mode, both docked and handheld, is really important for just making exploration feel smooth and responsive. In an open world like this, you need that fluidity.
We should also probably touch on the broader artistic side, the art, the sound, and the cultural impact the game's had over the years.
Definitely. The art style is pure cyberpunk, instantly recognizable. It draws heavily from classics like Blade Runner and Akira. And even with the necessary technical adjustments for Switch 2, reports say that core visual identity, that vibrant, layered, neon-soaked look, really shines through.
And the sound design is fantastic. The soundtrack just pulses through the city streets. You've got bands like Refuse performing as Johnny's in-game band, Samurai.
Samurai.
Plus tracks from artists like Grimes, ADP Rocky. It really builds the world's atmosphere. And being able to tailor that with the different radio stations, maybe using the touch controls on Switch 2, adds to the immersion. Phantom Liberty brought his own distinct spy thriller music too, which perfectly fits the mood of Dogtown.
The game's cultural impact definitely got a huge boost from the Edgerunners anime series on Netflix back in 2022.
Oh yeah, that was huge.
That show was massively successful, brought a whole new wave of players to the game, and they even integrated characters and elements from the anime back into the game itself.
There are fun little nods too, like Easter eggs referencing CDPR's other big series, The Witcher. And there was apparently a cool little crossover quest involving the indie hit Balatro added in Phantom Liberty.
Haha, really? That's random, but cool.
The community is still super active too, modding on PC, speedrunning attempts. There was even some recent buzz online about players finding potentially new map waypoints in the Switch 2 version, speculating they might lead to undiscovered secrets. Shows how engaged people still are.
We should also briefly acknowledge, just for completeness based on the sources, a past issue regarding localization. During the Update 2.0 rollout, some controversy arose over certain anti-Russian statements found in the Ukrainian localization. CD Projekt RED later removed these specific lines and issued an apology. It just sort of highlights the complexities of navigating real-world sensitivities, even within fictional settings, and it's worth noting it was addressed.
Right, good to cover that neutrally. So finally, let's circle back to the big picture. What does it actually mean for Cyberpunk 2077, Ultimate Edition to be a Nintendo Switch 2 launch title?
Well, priced at $69.99, it's clearly positioned as a premium major release right alongside Nintendo's own first-party games. And shipping that complete package-based game, expansion, all DLCs fully on a single 64 GB cartridge without needing those massive day-one downloads. That is genuinely rare for a modern blockbuster game of this sheer size and scope. It's a statement about physical media, too.
And for Nintendo. Leading their new console launch with this game feels like a very deliberate signal. It strongly suggests they're serious about attracting and, crucially, successfully hosting major, mature, technically demanding third-party games on the Switch 2. You saw fans online immediately calling it a statement of intent.
Yeah, it absolutely feels like that. It sets a really high bar for future third-party support. If CD Projekt RED managed to bring Cyberpunk 2077 in this complete form to the Switch 2 at launch, well, it suggests the platform is capable of handling some seriously ambitious titles down the line.
So wrapping up this deep dive, you've really followed the whole arc of Cyberpunk 2077. From that very troubled beginning, through a remarkable redemption that turned it into a critically acclaimed, sprawling, open-world RPG, and now reaching this point, a technical triumph for the Nintendo Switch 2.
The Ultimate Edition really does offer the definitive package. That huge, intricate world, the compelling main narrative, all that rich side content, and the absolutely brilliant Phantom Liberty expansion, all bundled together and significantly entirely portable now.
This release genuinely speaks to a wide range of players, doesn't it? If you're a fan of deep open-world games, if you're drawn to those dark, complex cyberpunk themes, or maybe if you're a longtime Nintendo fan who's been craving a truly substantial, mature RPG experience you can play anywhere, this is definitely one to watch.
Yeah. You should now have a solid understanding of the game's journey, the history behind it, a real appreciation for the technical work involved in this specific port, and a sense of why it matters for the Switch 2's future.
And as you maybe think about stepping into Night City on your Switch 2, here's a final thought. Consider how that whole concept of redemption, both for the game itself, overcoming its rocky start to reach its potential, and maybe for V, searching for their own path in that pretty bleak future. How does that theme resonate differently when experienced on a platform traditionally seen through a, let's say, more family-focused lens?
Interesting point. What does this kind of hybrid experience playing such a massive, mature, graphically demanding game portably suggest about the future of ambitious game design on handhelds? And what new stories, what new perspectives might it allow you to discover, whether it's in Night City this time or perhaps in completely different worlds down the road?
Something to mull over.
Definitely something to think about. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
Until next time.